So, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. So, my name is Hala bin Abdenbi, and I'm honored to welcome you all today to our seminar here at Midocean University. Thank you for joining us, and thank you also for Mr. François Frigit to be with us today. So, at Midocean University, we are committed to fostering a culture of innovation, global engagement, and real-world learning. Our programs leads to bridge academic knowledge with the practical insights, empowering students to lead and thrive in an ever-evolving world. Events like this seminar are part of our ongoing effort to connect our community with leading voices from across industries and disciplines. We are today incredibly fortunate to be joined by a distinguished guest speaker, someone whose expertise truly stands at the intersection of innovation and impact. Mr. François Frigit is a distinguished expert in artificial intelligence and finance with over 3 decades experience. He has held top executive positions, including the global head of models and valuation processes at Banco Standard. He has developed advanced AI models and algorithms, contributing significantly to the field. So today we are really fortunate to have Mr. François Frigit with us. Seminars today is a smart of AI integration for small businesses, achieving more with less. So without further delay, it's my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Monsieur François Frigit. Monsieur François Frigit, bienvenue parmi nous.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to our today's seminars.
Thank you very much. I hope you can see the presentation.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor to be presenting this at this speech at Midocean University. I don't thank you all for attending. So today we're going to focus on how to implement AI in small businesses in a smart way. Let me just introduce myself very quickly. So as she mentioned, I've been working, I used to work as a quant for 30 years. Quant is a mathematical modeler for financial markets. I did it in several countries and several banks. And for the past 7 years, I've been implementing artificial intelligence, 5 years in a large bank, and 2 years at Amalaya Ventures for small businesses. So I have the view on the different aspects. Amalaya Venture is a consulting company set up by my daughter, Laetitia Frigit, who is also attending the seminar. She has a huge background also on management. She's created also some startups, and she's helping also different businesses on management, and now particularly on how to implement AI together with me. Today, we're going to have 3 parts in the presentation. since I don't know exactly your level, and I guess that your level is a little bit diverse in terms of knowledge, deep knowledge in AI, either technical or not, business oriented or not, whether you know really, you have experience in AI, or you just heard of it, or you're just discovering. What I'm going to do is to do the presentation, skipping some technical aspects in particular, or some slides. And if you want me to focus on one particular aspect, please ask a question or mention it, so that when the presentation is finished, roughly within 40 minutes, then I can focus on particular aspect if you need to. First part, definition and history. Second part, we're going to focus on practical cases, especially for small businesses. And the third part, I will insist on the way implementing AI in a small business changes the company itself. And you need to take it into account whenever you want to start the journey to AI. So first part, definition and history. Artificial intelligence, I'm not going to present it. Everybody has his own definition. For me, it's just the current version of statistics and digital analytics. It's combination of statistics and applied mathematics with heavy involvement, of course, of computer science. That's obvious. In AI, you try to solve typically two kinds of problems. One is classification. You want your model to, whenever it's presented it's got an item submitted as an input, to say this item is part of this or that class. That's classification. The second kind of second family of problems is what's called prediction, meaning that the model produces a value. What is the temperature in Riyadh tomorrow at 7 p.m.? What will it be? What will your sales number will be next month for this particular item, etc. So two kinds of problems. From an historical point of view, to me, deep learning, to be specific about AI nowadays, is just one phase of the different waves of digital analysis that we've experienced in the past century. In the 20th century, it was more classic statistics. Then during the year 2000, it's what we could call classic machine learning, a set of recipes for a set of specific problems. And then among these recipes, neural network became the standard, or really the most important model to use since 2012 for image classification, and since 2018 with transformers in language. Now, if you look at it, the way it's also accelerating, because you have new models, important models. You have new models every day. You have new important models every quarter. In the coming years, there'll be another breakthrough that will push us into the next wave that I call here digital analysis 4.0, for whatever kind of radical new idea, or you name it. This is just a slide. As I said, I'm going to skip or go very fast on several slides. This is a slide. Most of the information you can find it in Wikipedia regarding hypes and winters in the past with AI. But what you need to remember, this series of hypes and winters has a consequence. First of all, during the winters, it was very important to find trendy names for models so that it catches the attention of investors. And therefore, sometimes you realize that you have models that do a certain thing, that have a certain design, and that the name, when you look at the design and the model, the name doesn't really correspond to what's in the model. But the second consequence, it was designed, this type of name was designed to attract the attention of investors. The second consequence is during hype waves, it's the opposite. You have many people who try to understand what AI is just based on the names of different models or, neural network or even artificial intelligence, etc. But these names don't necessarily correspond to what's behind. And therefore, a lot of discussion, a lot of comments are made today based on words rather than on the reality. These are the consequences of series of hypes and winters in AI history. Neural network definition, I'm not going to go into details. I can come back once again if you need me to do so. I assume that you have an idea or you can find this kind of definition, but basically you may say there is an input layer where you have input data coming in, a series of layers in the middle, called sometimes hidden layers, and an output layer. Focusing, so the different types of neural network, the most important ones are convolutional neural networks, initially designed mainly to treat images, and transformers since 2018, initially designed to treat mainly language, but are more and more used in different fields. Let's focus in particular on inputs. The input of a neural network in practice, it can't be anything. It's a way of structuring digital data, numerical data, that's called tensor. It's a general concept for vectors, matrices, cubes, etc. A vector is a tensor of dimension 1, matrix tensor dimension 2, etc. But I'm not going to go into details, but you need to have numbers inside. The good thing is that when it all became very important, the neural network in the year 2010, we already had all the industry of music, sound, image, video, etc. would move to digital data from analog data during the past decades, the previous decades. So it was already available as an input for neural networks. It was only among all the inputs that people tend to try to use with neural network. The main problem was language, words. And it got solved during the year 2010, thanks to different progresses. And now you may say, yeah, that we have a very efficient way to transform words, to make it simple, into vectors. So that's for the input. For the output, well, it all corresponds to the problem. You remember, we say there are two types of problem. One is classification, the other one is prediction. Well, the output layer is a vector, is a series of numbers. And therefore, if you want to make a prediction, you're ready. The output of the neural network is ready to be the prediction. If, on the other hand, you're trying to do a classification with different classes, for example, here 3 classes, you may use a small trick called softmax just to transform this vector of output, vector of numbers, into a vector of percentages, the sum being 100%. And therefore, the class corresponding to the highest score, the highest percentage, is the result of your classification algorithm. Okay, so that's for neural network in general. I have now several slides corresponding to convolutional neural network, once again, specially designed. I can go into details if you ask for it, but let's keep it for the moment. It's not the purpose, except for this slide. This slide helps you understand the philosophy of convolutional neural network, how it works. The idea is that convolutional neural networks have filters. In the first layer, where the input is the image, the filters try to identify very precise micro patterns in the whole image. Then in the second layer, the filters combine the filters of the first layer. And therefore they start filtering and identifying some more complex patterns. And after a few layers, for example, here 4, you may start to be able with some of the filters to identify straight lines or curves. And then you go on combining all these filters layer after layer to get more and more complex patterns being identified, like a cross, a circle, etc. And so on and so forth, until, for example, at some point, you have such complex layers combining all the different previous layers filters, combining all the previously filters, that you may identify some patterns as the one at the bottom right. And as you imagine, this is the beginning of identifying a cat. That's the philosophy behind convolutional neural network. I have more slides on convolutional neural networks just to give some details, but I'll skip them. Now, one last part on the definition of machine learning and artificial intelligence. This is a slide I designed like 4 or 5 years ago when I was working, developing AI models in a bank, trying to summarize the activity. And in practice, what you're doing when you're implementing AI, you're using models to develop application. And here I've put the models and techniques we're using at that time in my team in the red box in the middle. And on the side, you have the corresponding application. On the left side here, you have the application directed to interaction with the external users, like capital markets at the top and customers at the bottom, left bottom. And on the right side, there are internal application. Typically, we had less in that particular setup on document analysis or process control, etc. I've put here my expertise, and as you see, you have to be humble. You have to be humble in AI because it's moving so fast, and there are so many applications in so diverse contexts that it's very difficult to say you're really a real deep, advanced expert. I consider myself as a decent expert on many aspects, and together with my daughter. So that's it for the first part, definition and history, and a bit of technical precision. Let's move now to practical cases for small businesses. What are the specificities of a small business? First of all, few employees. That's almost by definition. Okay, so there is no critical mass to create a dedicated AI team. Not so many data, even though you may have exceptions like fintech startups, etc. But in general, you don't have so many data. And since the company is not so huge, then you may assume that the IT system is not either. And therefore, it's more flexible in general than large company IT systems. These are the main characteristics from AI point of view of small businesses. Now, if you want to start using AI in a small business, how should you do it? First of all, I set aside generative AI because it's a special case, and we'll consider it later. Because generative AI, you have plenty of people who already use it, even in their personal life, and therefore it's a special case. Let's focus on the rest of AI application. So, since you don't have the expertise and you don't have the size to build a proper AI team internally, you should start with external consultant, of course, like Amalaya Ventures. We would be delighted to help you. But more seriously, so you should start with a precise, limited project. These external consultants, some may come and make a huge assessment, a 32-page report, etc. I don't think it's the right approach, personally. Some may do it, and everybody has his own way to do things. My personal view, together with my daughter, is more that we should start with a precise, limited project so that everybody makes its own idea of what it means to implement AI with a real project that corresponds to the company itself. Now, once the solution has been designed and implemented for this first project, you may see as the business owner or business manager how this solution fits, of course, with your IT system. That's obvious. You're putting a new piece of software within your company, so it has to fit with the IT system, but above all, with your culture. And we'll come back to it. Then, once you're convinced that it makes sense to go on with AI, you should review all your activities, and particularly three aspects: the supply chain, all your internal processes, and in particular production processes, and your customer relationship management. And in all these areas, there are probably different types of limited projects as well that may add value to your company. And you should list them. You should end up with targeting, as I mentioned here, repetitive tasks with low added value, let's say, that can be formalized in classic machine learning problems. And therefore, there is a model or a series of models corresponding to this particular problem, and for which also you have data available. This list should be made of out of 3, 5, not more than 10 potential projects. And then you start implementing them. By doing so, you gradually adapt your IT system. That's obvious, once again, but also adopt within the whole company a more data-driven culture. And that is key. And then when you see that you have several projects going on, etc., it may make sense to hire internally some AI people. And our advice is to start with people whose task is to maintain existing AI project, AI solution implemented, to start with, so that they get familiar with all its implications, and gradually this internal team may move to designing and implementing new AI solutions. And that's how you may make the shift gradually towards AI. Now, regarding the three different areas, supply chain, production, and CRM, there are some obvious solutions that we have already implemented in different companies that we would like to present you. First of all, on CRM, different applications on CRM, they are based, the easiest way is to base them on what's called transaction data. What we mean by transaction data is not necessarily when a customer in a shop takes a shirt and buys it, that's a transaction, that's obvious. And then you may put a timestamp at the time he pays. But it's not only that. Even on your company's website, if a customer or prospect comes and starts clicking on particular items, particular products pages, then this is also a transaction, meaning it's an interaction between a prospect or a customer and one of your products. Okay, there may be a quantity assigned to it, like if it pays if he buys a particular product, then the amount will be notified, but it's not necessary. Then with this, you have a pre-treatment. I'm not going to go through these slides. Once again, if you want to, I may come back, but you have a pre-treatment of all this data to end up with this. For each customer on one side, and for each one of your products on the other side, you have a vector describing each customer or describing each product. All the product vectors have the same size, but the numbers in it are unique for each product. All the customers' vectors have the same size, but the numbers in it are unique for the customers. Okay. This process helps you, once again, digitalize the description of your products on one side and your clients on the other side. Once you've done this, you're ready to use or to develop AI solutions. 3 solutions can be easily developed based on this pre-treatment. First of all, recommendation engine. You all experience it on a VOD platform. You're watching a movie and the platform suggests at the bottom or somewhere, suggests other potential movie that could be of interest to you, either because this movie is very similar to the movie you just watched, or also because the platform knows about what you've watched during all these years, and they know you, sometimes even better than you would think. And the product, the movie, in that case, the movie they're suggesting correspond also to your particular profile. And for another profile watching the same initial movie, they would suggest other movies. You see? So that's one particular, it's personalization, if you want, of the interaction with your customer. Second application is to identify anomalies, meaning you may develop a predictor of what should the activity be for this particular customer I on this particular product J. And if the value is correspond to the reality, to what you've observed, it's fine. But if you've realized that it's much higher, for example, than what you actually observe, then it means that probably this customer should be contacted to suggest him to at least have a look at this product. Another type of application, since you have vectors describing all your customers, these vectors can be projected into the space, and you may realize, it's very often the case, that you have some groups appearing in the space, that a series of customers have vectors who are very similar with each other, and you can create a group, then another group with other customers, etc. So this way, you may use this algorithm to perform a customer segmentation. Same thing with products. In the universe of products, you have a space, vectors corresponding to each product, and therefore you may segment your products. The way we have a special process in Himalaya to perform this kind of approach, which is unique. As far as I know, as far as we know, we are the only ones doing this kind of approach, combining different typical algorithms. And but it's like a research on our side, meaning we've already implemented it once, but we are trying to improve it still. But just for you to know. So these are 3 applications on the CRM part of a small business. Now let's focus on the production part. For production, typically you want to control that everything goes smooth, and therefore you want to identify if there are some anomalies, sometimes live. To do so, there is a particular algorithm that is very useful called autoencoders. Once again, I'm not going to go into the technical details, etc. But just for you to know, with autoencoders, you're able to identify anomalies. How? Because autoencoders learn what the normal behavior of your data is, the normal patterns of your data are. Autoencoders learn what's normal. And therefore, if you have data, like data monitoring your process, financial process or production process, whatever, and these data, some of the data don't correspond to what the autoencoder output is, it means that these data are unnormal. Doesn't mean that they are wrong. It may be the case, it may be correct that they be special, but nevertheless, it's a good way to spot some of the numbers in this whole table that an expert, someone, a supervisor, should be looking at. That's the idea of this kind of approach on anomaly detection for the production process. So these are, I shouldn't say easy, because it's never easy, to be honest, but feasible, limited projects to start with in a small business. Now, once again, third part, as I mentioned earlier, when you start the journey of implementing AI in your company, then this has some implication, and you may be aware of them before launching everything. First of all, there is one aspect that I've lived with for now 32 years, which is in whatever context, either AI or even financial model, mathematical models, etc. Whenever you release a model to a user, the same process occurs. Let's take an example. Imagine you have a camera, fixed camera, in front of traffic light, and at this traffic light, you either can turn, there is a wall in front, you either can turn right or left. That's it. So all the cars arriving at the traffic light just turn either right or left. So without any knowledge, guessing whether the next car will go right or left is like a 50-50% guess. Okay? Imagine that you build a model that's constantly looking at what the different cars are doing, identifying their model, the time, of course, the time during the day, identifying the number of people inside, etc., whether it goes fast or slowly, identifying implicitly many different characteristics of each car. And then it learns that there is a pattern, and in such a way that it's able to correctly guess whether the next car will go right or left with 80% accuracy. That's fantastic. Well, each time I've released a model, and I've did it in 3 different continents, I've released a model to users. The first time, the guy is like on his knees saying, "Oh, you saved my life, it's fantastic," etc., etc. And very soon, I got aware of it. I got prepared for that. Very soon, the problem is not that it's 80% accuracy, it's 20% error rate. The problem becomes the focus then moves from the whole success of moving from 50% accuracy to 80%, which is fantastic. Then the problem is, oh yeah, but one case out of 5, it's a mistake. And it's always like that. So the user's tolerance to error is key. And therefore, when you want to start developing a model, there should be a constant agreement between the developer and the user. It's like a negotiation and then an agreement. So in such a way that you don't constantly try to improve. Because of course, next version, you may move to 88% accuracy. No, it means you've reduced your error rate from 20% to 12%, which is fantastic. But then since you've made this progress, I'm sure that you can make more. You can make a better version, etc. And it's an endless process. So for the company not to waste its time and money in developing constantly the ultimate version that is marginally improving the rate, the error rate, at a huge effort in general at the end, you need to, from the beginning, decide, well, beyond 90%, we won't try to improve. 90% is already extremely good and it's fine. So that's a very important aspect when you implement AI. You need to really set and adapt yourself to users' tolerance to error. Key factor for success in implementing AI for small businesses. Well, now I think you've understood. You need to set reasonable expectation. I haven't written it here, but I read recently that many companies are saying on average that for cost reduction project, AI project, they save like 10% of their costs. For revenue generation project, they improve their revenues by 5%. Personally, that's what I read. Personally, I have different figures, much better, but I think it's not bad to start with extremely reasonable and maybe very conservative expectation so that you don't make mistakes. But on the other hand, you have to move to AI because the current process, to me, I'm relatively old, as you may guess, it reminds me when companies in the 80s gradually had to use PCs or Macs, that in practice personal computers, within their business. And some may have said at the beginning of the 80s, well, in my case, we're old company, old style management, whatever. Never during my life will we use computers. But at the end of the 80s, everybody was using computers. And it's the same with internet. Some people may have said in 95 or even in 98, well, strange or whatever, maybe not. We'll see what the others will do, and maybe it's going to collapse. And then in the year 2000, you had the whole collapse of capital markets due to the dot-com hype. So many said, well, I knew it would happen this way, and then let's forget about internet. But very soon, everybody's been using internet, and it's the same for me. That's the next wave. AI is the next wave. You have to at some point, and it's better to try to do it in an organized way. Regarding data, of course, your model may be extremely well designed, but garbage in, garbage out. So it's very good when you're a small business because usually employees who are involved in the data generation, data recording process most of the time, or may influence it. On the other side, they're also receiving AI results, and therefore they see the improvement with the data quality as input, the improvement of the quality of the results. And that's one of the good advantages of being a small business. Most of your employees will be part of everything, and therefore they will realize what's important. Another aspect is that if you don't have the AI culture initially, the first application you will implement will require huge efforts on gathering all the existing data, generate new ones, on harmonizing data, buying external data. For example, is a prospect a customer or not? Sometimes they are identified here as a customer. By the way, the name may be customer in another database, it's a client. Then the client may be a person or it may be a company. But therefore, how do you treat the employee of this company if there are 3 employees being your customer? These are extremely practical problems. We've been confronted to. With experience, and therefore you need to solve all this. But when you do this for the first solution, this first application, it costs a lot of energy and even money. But once you've done this, the next model will be much easier to implement and so on. And you keep on improving data quality or data harmony, let's say, or homogeneity, but you take advantage of what the previous all the previous work done. Then one particular aspect is that usually what's called data labeling is extremely useful, but extremely expensive. Data labeling is typically when you see, well, the most famous example is you have images of cats, dogs, trees, etc. And you need someone to say for the model to be trained and reproduce it, someone to watch the image and say, this is the cat, and write it down, labeling. And this is a dog, this is a car, this is a school bus, etc., etc. Or in a more professional environment, when you have items coming from your suppliers and they're unboxed from whatever packaging they are, you may have a camera identifying which kind of item it is, and then therefore sending them in one place or another. And this camera needs to be trained with labeled data, different photos of the same item in different ways, with someone saying, this is this kind of item, this is this kind of item, etc. Okay? This is expensive, and actually it requires someone with knowledge, someone recognizing a cat or a dog, it's fine, but very often in a professional environment, the guy who's labeling needs to have some knowledge, and therefore is expensive, and his time is really valuable. So you need to do this. On the other hand, if you correctly label your data, your model quality and performance improves dramatically. So it's worth it, but you need to do it in a very efficient way. And some of the solution, and that's particularly true for small businesses. One particular solution is active learning or semi-supervised learning, but particularly active learning. Key for success, once again, it's key to make users' life easier. And when I say users, if we focus on the first AI application in a small business, once again, this application, this software or solution should be dedicated to internal to employees, to internal users. Because it's very dangerous. You need to master relatively well AI before developing application for customers or for external users. It's much easier to start with and to get the culture, to get organized, to get all your system prepared, to focus on local internal users. So the key is to make their life easier, meaning reducing all the time they spend on dull, repetitive tasks. Special case generative AI, as I said, it's a special case because in practice, many employees know already about generative AI, and even what's reported by many companies, it's called shadow adoption. Many employees tend to use it without saying it because they don't want to be seen as lazy. So they don't mention, and it's something that is hidden. The best way should be probably, we haven't experienced it at Himalaya, but it should be probably to incentivize the use, the explicit use of generative AI by employees, even financially, but as long as they do it in an organized way, following companies' rule, ethics, legal constraints, and IT processes. So that's the only thing I want to say about generative AI. Last thing is that even though sometimes some easy, low-hanging fruit, let's say, are available for the first application, very soon you'll need to have developments, ad hoc developments for your actual setup, your actual company, and therefore research. And research means try and error. So be prepared for failure. You have no guarantee at all that the research will be a success or a full success, let's say. And also life is unfair. Sometimes you have very easy development that generates spectacular results and other development that require lots of effort that have almost no impact. There is a last slide here regarding active learning. I'm not going to go into details. If you want, I can go back to go deeper into this, but I think it's almost 40 minutes now. So I want to leave the space available for you to ask your question, and I will try to answer them as well as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Francois. You can continue explaining the last slide. It's okay.
Okay. So let me. Sorry. So active learning, once again, the idea is to label in an efficient way, meaning try to spend as little time as possible on labeling the item that really improve the quality of your model training. So I assume that you're familiar with the idea of supervised and supervised learning, or let me just remind you about it quickly. Supervised learning is like the best situation, meaning that your model, which requires data as an input and produces an output, can be trained on data where you have both, for each case, both the input and the output, observed, stored, recorded in real life. Imagine you're like that, then you may train your model just to reproduce the output that is actually observed in real life. And supervised learning means that you have no output. You have no idea of what the output should be. So typically, for example, I didn't describe it in detail, but an autoencoder can be trained in an unsupervised way. That's unsupervised is a side. The best is to be in a situation where you can train your model on supervised data, meaning labeled data in a supervised way. Let's assume you have a training set made of 100,000 item, inputs, okay, inputs for your model, 100,000 case, which is already decent, huh? But you have no label, you have no idea what the output should be. So, as an example, images. And let's assume that you want to train, in this example, a 5-class classifier, okay? So active learning consists in like a loop of different sessions. And in each session, you increase the size of your label data. So to start with, for each active learning session, what you do is you train your model on all the already labeled items. For the first session, you have none. Okay, in the first session, to start with, you have no labeled data at all. So randomly, by chance, you choose a small subset. So I said 100,000 items. So let's say you choose 1%, which means 1,000 items randomly. If you have a way to better, clever way to choose them, of course, it's better. But by default, let's say you choose them randomly, and you ask your expert or experts, usually employees, to label them. Instead of labeling 100,000 items, they just label 1,000. And then what you do, you train the model using these 1,000 labeled items. So it's not a lot for a training set. So the quality of your model will be relatively poor, but at least in some cases, it will give good results. And then once you've done this, you've trained your model in the first iteration on 1,000 items, you apply it to the rest, 99,000 items in our case for the moment. By applying it to the rest, it's a classifier. You remember it gives percentages on each class. Well, for all the ones where you have a result that is like 99% this class, there is a very good chance that the model is accurate. And therefore, these ones, you may consider them as already labeled. Usually there are very few, but it's to start with, then it may increase. It's called pseudo labels. But the most interesting part is at the boundary between the different classes. So typically, all the worst case outputs, which are the ones where two classes are more or less at the same level with the same percentage. Let's say we have 5 classes. Let's say there is one class with 41%, another class with 41.5%, and the rest 7%, 6%, etc. Then, in that case, you should submit them, these cases, these worst cases, to your experts again, so that it tells the model, no, in that case, you are undecisive because you had 41% on one side, 41.5% on the other side. You didn't know what to do. I tell you, this is this class. And in this process, you may even realize that, I missed it. There is a 6th class. It's not only 5, there is a 6th. There is a class dog. This image is an image of a dog, so I should create a 6th class. But the expert will tell you, looking at the cases where the model doesn't know what to do, and so on and so forth. This way, after, let's say, 5, it depends on the context, the model, the quality of your data, etc. But you may end up after 5 or 7 or 8 sessions, meaning, roughly speaking, 5 or 8% of your data manually labeled, to have everything correctly treated by the model. That's the idea.
Thank you so much, Monsieur Frigide, for those valuable insights. It's clear so that AI, when integrated thoughtfully and gradually, can empower small businesses, especially in competitive markets. Thank you very much, Mr. Frigide. So, dear attendees, we would love to know your thoughts. Does anyone have a question for our valuable guests? Feel free so to raise your hand or type in the chat box. Bien sûr, vous pouvez poser toutes vos questions en français pour notre invité Monsieur Frigide. تقدرون أيضا تسألون بالعربي وحنقوم أيضا بالترجمة. شكرا. Any question is a good question. This is a great opportunity to learn directly from our expert. So feel free to ask your question.
What I may do is to go through the
Okay.
presentation again so that it gives some idea to
Okay.
some people.
Okay, very brilliant idea. Okay.
Let me go back to the start. So definition of artificial intelligence, the history, then definition of a neural network with one particular focus, the different types of neural networks, the input, the output, convolutional neural networks, several slides on this. And then this as an example of how you may list the different applications with external users, internal users, and the different models. If you don't mind, I'm going to spend just 30 seconds. There's something I forgot to mention here.
Okay, go ahead, please.
What's interesting with this is that if you start, you will notice that one model may be used in different applications. And also an application may use different models. And therefore, it's a good way to increase your internal expertise step by step. You start with the first application, therefore, there'll be, for example, one model. When you implement this first application, you learn about this first model. Once you learn about this first model, you look on internet, etc., how it's applied, this model. And you realize that there are other applications, a second one, that could be useful to you. So you implement a second application, but this second application involves a second model together with the first model, etc., etc. So it's a step-by-step expertise increase process. Then on practical cases, we looked at what's specific with small businesses. Then transaction data. I skipped the pre-treatment of the data to generate these embedding vectors. And then 3 application, recommendation engine, anomaly detection, and clustering, meaning products or customer segmentation. Then another application on anomaly detection using autoencoders. I skipped the technical description of autoencoders. And this is the application with autoencoders, typical one on anomaly detection to check the data quality and the quality of your process. And then in the company transformation, this is the general idea that trying to improve the quality or the performance from a user's point of view of the model can be endless. So you need to put a stop loss, let's say, at some point. Key factors for success in a small business. Oops. And one last one, managing innovation, and then active learning.
Thank you, Mr. Frigide, for your valuable explanation. We have a question in the chat box. Bushra is asking about a reference or a book about the subject. Can you maybe you have some advices to give our attendees a book or resources about the subjects of today?
Okay, if it's a book regarding specifically how to apply AI to small businesses, I'm not aware of any book, but I didn't look extensively for it. Huh? But I don't know of any book on this very specific topic. If it's a book, if you're looking for a book on artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc., there are several, but it all depends on whether you want it to be a little bit more technical to really understand all the process and the modeling behind, or you want something more business oriented and management. So it all depends. On the technical aspects, there is one which is now a bit old. It's probably the third version by a French guy working at Google. You realize that there are many French guys who have developed useful tools in AI that are used worldwide, huh? Starting with scikit-learn. There is one by someone called Aurélien Géron, Geron.
Sure. Okay.
I think it was first published in 2018 or something like that, but it's probably the third version now. But it's a little bit technical. It explains how to use it, but and how to implement it, how to code. It's not from the business perspective. I'd say you may probably have. I will assume that. Well, I know that McKinsey have produced several documents that, and they also keep on publishing documents regarding the situation of AI in the industry. I think the numbers I mentioned, 5%, 10% cost reductions and revenue increase come from the latest version from this year. So McKinsey, typically, or I assume BCG, Boston Consulting Group, I would go for this kind of publication regarding management.
Thank you very much Mr. فريجيت. بشرى إذا كنت تستمعين لحديث الضيف أعطاك عدة مراجع منها للفرنسي جيرون عنده مرجع في 2018 لكن شوية تقني المرجع أو الكتاب لهذا الكاتب وأيضا مستر فريجيت أعطى مرجع ثاني لماكنسي أوكي عنده مراجع في كل ما هو مانجمنت أوكي بتقدر تشوفينا في الانترنت. شكرا بشرى. Thank you Mr. Frigid. So do you have any question please attendees feel free to ask Mr. Frigid about the subject today. I have a question Mr. Frigid.
Yeah.
So Mr. Frigid, in your experience with Amelia Adventure, what are the most critical first steps a small business should take when working with a consultant to build a data-driven culture?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question.
Yes.
Typically, that's what I mentioned. People tend to think more about IT challenges, potential challenges, but in practice, it's more a culture issue. Even though the company really wants to implement AI, is really keen on doing what it takes to use AI, in practice, the cultural change comes with the idea of data. For example, we have one experience with one company where one of the owners wanted really, and all the owners actually wanted to implement AI in different aspects, and it was even part of their strategy to sell to some customers AI enhanced services. When time came to gather data, it was extremely difficult to get the raw data. They were keen on constantly pre-process internally the data to clean it, etc. But nevertheless, without the AI expertise, sometimes you miss some of the important aspects. You have the feeling that your data is better shaped, probably, but the they wanted to pre-process, and in practice, we realized, and we made them realize that by giving us the raw data, we were able to pre-process in a better way the data. And it's extremely important that you be open to the expert. And in that case, it was totally the case. And therefore, the problem got solved relatively quickly. And they realized that it was extremely important actually to give us the raw data. So that's what the challenge of all the culture around data, and the other one is around the model. Another experience, this time with a larger company, was that the users thought that everybody was using the same model. It was a very competitive business, and everybody was using the same model. So it was a matter of finding the model published somewhere, just implement it, and you would get the same result as the competition. But it was not the case at all. Each company has its own models in practice, because you constantly have some nuances, some details that matter and make a huge difference in the output and are specific to your company. So that's another aspect. It's not one model fits all at all. You need to develop your model. In the first version, it may be, but as I mentioned earlier, very soon the users want an improvement. To improve, you need to have something more specific and constantly more and more specific to the context of your company.
Thank you, Mr. Frigid. You answered my next questions, actually. I had a question exactly for you. So my question was, as Amelia, how do you tailor your approach to feed different business types or levels of digital maturity? It was, you had, I had your answer before my question. So thank you, Mr. Frigid, sorry. Attendees, dear attendees, do you have any question, please? Please, any question is a good question. You have this opportunity, so be aware of this opportunity and ask our guests any question. Feel free to raise your hand or write your question in the chat. S'il vous plaît, si vous avez des questions, vous avez le temps et vous devez saisir cette opportunité pour poser la question à Monsieur Frigide. تقدرون تتكلمون بالعربي وتسألون مستر فريجيت. We had a question from our Facebook page, Mr. Frigid. So Qasim Abdel has a question. Could you please give us the name of apps you mentioned? This is a question in Facebook.
Apps.
Applications, maybe he is talking about applications.
Okay. When I mention application, I'm not talking about something you download on your smartphone that is available and you buy or you get for free in the Google store or Apple store.
Okay, thank you.
I'm talking about piece of software that you develop applying AI to one particular problem. Maybe there was a misunderstanding, or maybe
Yes.
I didn't understand the question.
No, this is what he meant it. I think he was thinking about apps in the mobile.
No,
I
you
guess
may
so.
develop an app in the mobile, but it's going to be specific to the problem you're trying to solve. I was not mentioning at all any general app that you download, etc.
Okay, it's fair enough. It's very clear. Thank you, Mr. Frigid.
But I may let me
Yes.
complete maybe my answer
Yes, go
for
ahead, please.
1 minute. There is an environment, so let's call it environment. It's not necessarily, usually it's not used on your mobile, it's more on a computer. But what's become, if someone is familiar with development, GitHub has been and is still the main place where you release your code when you have programmed something and you want to people share it with plenty of users. On AI, in the past 18 months, let's say, as I said, everything is moving extremely fast. Huh? One particular framework or specialized in AI called Hugging Face, like the Hugging Face smiley. Hugging Face platform is becoming now the AI GitHub, in a sense that if you want to release an AI development for everyone to share, because AI development is in big part open source and freeware. If you want to make this available to make an AI application or an AI development available to the public, let's say, gradually everybody is now using Hugging Face. Typically, I think they had a year ago, less than a year ago, like 700,000 models available. And I checked 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was 1.5 million models available. So gradually, everybody's putting their model. Or DeepSeek, you may have heard of DeepSeek, the Chinese competitor of ChatGPT. When they released DeepSeek to the public in January, it was in Hugging Face. So if you want to download something, sometimes it's an application, and sometimes it's just code, but it may be an application, and use it on your personal computer. You should try to go to Hugging Face.
Thank you, Mr. Frigid. Thank you for those explanations. Do you have any questions, please? We are waiting for all your questions. You can write down your questions in the chat box. Vous pouvez poser toutes vos questions dans le chat ou ou vous pouvez aussi lever la main. You can raise your hand. We are waiting for your questions. Please feel free to ask our guest today your questions. تقدرون تتكلمون بالعربي وتقدرون تسألون بالعربي. نقدر نسوي الترجمة. احنا في انتظار أسئلتكم. So, Mr. Frigid, as we wrap up, we have another question, the last question for today. What's one piece of advice or takeaway you can give to our audience today?
If you want to be familiar with AI in one way or another, I think there is nothing else than actually do it. This is typically the kind of topic when you learn by doing. You don't need to be an expert in programming or whatever. You may try to reach an expert to help you. and to explain to you in practical ways what you can be doing. But don't miss the train. Once again, I've seen how gradually computers, not really gradually, in very few years, computers invaded most of the companies. I've seen how internet invaded most of the companies. This is happening. This is another wave. You can't afford to stay aside and not get involved. You need to at least understand, and to understand, you need to do. That's my advice. And to be honest, we've helped several companies already to start with AI, and each time it's been a success to the point that their customers are constantly asking for more products and services based on AI. So you should try to get in contact with some experts.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fijit, for sharing such valuable insights with us today. Your expertise has shed light on how small businesses can take practical steps toward building a data-driven culture and so more. Thank you very much, Mr. Fijit. To everyone who joined us today, thank you for your engagement and attention. We hope this session sparked new ideas and gave you tools to take back to your future, or maybe to your business journey in the future. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.